Do you want your microphone over there or not? No? Okay.
It's, what is it called, keeping a social distance?
And that's one of the reasons why it spread so fast in Italy is they can't do that. It's just not in their blood.
That's what one guy said on the news today. He said, this is a town square where people hug and they kiss and and then not here anymore.
You get 3-foot clearance. If not, they get 3 months in jail. Really?
Seriously?
Italy, I think.
Real tight, and they all get.
No, you got to keep 3 feet between anybody else.
Well,
On that cheerful note, welcome everybody to the March 11th Charter Commission meeting. First order on our agenda is approve the minutes of February the 27th, which you should have gotten via email. Are there any changes or corrections?
I move to approve.
second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Great. Okay, thank you. Okey doke, jumping right in. Nominations and elections. We went through this once very early on, pretty quickly. There's not a lot changed here. What we have changed came from Katrina, her requests on number 1 petitions, when you're being nominated via petition, to go with not less than 25 in number to be on the petition. I think we talked about this. This is what state law has. We tried to change it, I think, last year, and it wasn't passed. People were suspicious about it. I don't know why they didn't like it, but Katrina's asked to that go back to 25. And then order of candidate surnames. This language is modern language for how people are listed on the ballot.
Where is that one?
It's section 3, order of candidate surnames.
Get back there.
Oh, you have to flip it over to actually read it.
That,
Yes.
is that specific language required by the statute? Just because it just seems like, what, do we really need all this? You know?
Different options, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's straight out of the state. Straight out of the state.
Alphabetical order.
Well, I'm okay with that, but it's, first name, middle initial. If you don't have a middle initial, it's just,
I know.
what if you're hyphenated name, Holy cow.
Well, you end up in the list of voters by the first part of your hyphenated name, not the last part. So, for instance, if my name was Anthony-Dodge, I'd be an A, not a D. It's confusing when you're checking people in.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
Well, I suppose if we referenced it, we could just say in alphabetical order by last name. The name of each nominee or candidate for nomination must appear on the ballot as follows: last name first,
But
followed by first name.
if we're following a statute, we don't have much choice.
Reference the statute.
I think we just, we reference the statute. I think we just do it. It's just,
Is that the MRSA?
yeah.
Yeah.
21 dash, that's the
Yeah,
nomination.
as shown in MRSA 21-A.
So, what are you saying, just kill it after that first alphabetical order by last
No.
name and then reference it, or keep it?
It frustrates me when I see stuff like this that just, it doesn't make it any more clear than it was before. And this is a law, you're charging you 50 cents a word. But if that's what the state says we have to have, then that's what the state says we have to have.
Okay.
It's okay.
I can, when we send this to Bill, I can make a note that says, do we really need all of this? Can we just end it and refer? So I can always ask him. Yes, Mark?
Question. We keep referring to all of these statutes. Okay?
Yep.
Statutes. The old one that we started with was referring to statutes that no longer exist.
Correct.
Do we have any reference in here, in the entire document, or can we put something in the document that references that as state statutes change, it's automatically adopted and we don't have to go in and change all the numbers?
That's a
That's a
good,
really
that is a
good
really good
suggestion.
idea.
So that we don't become obsolete next week after we pass it today, or whatever day we pass it, and the state comes out with a thing and changes it.
Yeah, I think
That's a
that should be
cool idea.
right at the front of the charter or at the end.
Something that
Yep,
references the entire document, so that as a state statute changes, we automatically will follow that statute.
Well,
unless they change the law, if it's just the reference number that changes, for instance, it went from 30 to 30-A, and then the numbers, the section numbers actually changed, but if the content of the reference changes, they changed the law, not just the numbering,
Right, that's-
then we'd be out of sync.
Yeah, but the problem is we have to do it anyway because the state says we have to go by state law.
Yeah.
No matter if it did change and we didn't like it, we still have to do it.
Right. Oh, well, why don't I ask Bill Kelly to give us
Another
that
BK
word?
question.
suggestion?
Yes, Karen.
Yeah, that after all these parentheses, MRSA and parentheses, you put an asterisk, and right at the end of the charter, you say, as referenced by state law, as referenced by current state law.
So put an asterisk after every reference or just the
Yeah.
first time?
Yeah, after every one, and then just say, it's just an asterisk, it's just, and then you just put that sentence at the end of the charter and you're done.
Put it at the beginning.
Or the beginning.
Just say that,
I don't care.
you know,
Yeah,
if
But you don't
there's-
have to
if
state
the
it
state
after.
law supersedes the ones that are in here, the newest, most recent state law that applies to them.
the beginning is just as good, just so we don't have to write it in every single time.
Right.
To build on what Mark has suggested, is part of Bill Kelly's regular responsibilities to the town that he keep an eye on changing statutes and comes and changes the charter when he sees something that says, aha, this, we need to update the charter because of this? I mean, how, if the state changes lots of laws,
We're not going to know.
how do we know when they change one that would apply to the
So
charter?
is it BK's, is it his
Yeah,
responsibility to
is
alert
that
the
part of his
town and then-
normal duties?
I
Is-
would-
I don't,
I think if he runs across it, he may bring it, but it's not something he'd be reading every day to see, to see this had changed, because we have ordinances that we discovered that need to be changed once we run across them.
Right.
They've been around for a long time.
I would think he would get some kind of a notice.
Maybe.
Wouldn't he, from the state? Certainly, that's how Jeremy keeps up, I would think, with changes. They don't,
Did anybody
I'm reading the Portland Press Herald.
Did anybody get a notice when these changed?
I have no
I
idea.
don't know when they changed, so.
Okay. I'll just ask him when I ask him other questions.
You might as well take him out to dinner, because you're going to be talking to him for a while.
So far, I've been able to do it by email. He can give lengthy responses, but they can be helpful. Great idea, Mark. And then on section 4, determination of election results, we just added and to post it on the town's website. And we've eliminated the phrase Australian ballot wherever we found it and put written ballot. So any other comments on nominations and elections? Okay.
In all honesty, when we started this thing, I thought this was the one major thing that we were going to do. And in reality, it seems to be the simplest thing we've done.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
Okay, general provisions, which is 8. There's been a lot of changes here. The Section 1 initiative and referendum, Bill says it is okay to move this because in Article 1, town meetings, where we talk about the citizens' right to petition and ask for a special town meeting, is all based on this law about citizens' right to initiative and referendum. So if we're going to put the definition as listed here in the glossary, but in the Article 1, under town meetings, where we talk about the citizen's right to petition and to request a town meeting, we're calling that citizen initiative and referendum, and then doing paragraph A, paragraph B. So we're not eliminating it, but we're putting the definition where it belongs, and that citizen's right to petition and calling the town meeting if the select board refuse is already in one. So just labeling it what it is, which is the citizen's right to initiative and referendum, means you don't have to have it in this no man's land, which is what general provisions is. That makes sense? And we had talked earlier at one point about, do we need to keep section 2 and 3 in here? Do they belong anywhere else? And Bill says, no, they belong exactly where they are. We do have a definition of, town officer and town officials. And I did get from Janice a list of all the people that need to come in when they've been appointed and get sworn. And I've sent that to Bill to ask him, because it dates back to Roger Moody's days, if there are any eliminations or additions that he thinks ought to be on that list.
Once that list is confirmed, why don't we list them here?
We could do that.
So it's clear. I think it's the 3 boards.
Well, there's more. No. Roger had on the list, of course, the Budget Committee, Harbor Committee, Historic Resources, Library Board of Trustees, Personnel Board, Planning Board, Voter Registration Appeals Board,
Really?
Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't know. I mean, the Harbor Committee and Historic Resources Committee. Now, Harbor Committee,
I don't ever remember
What
being
kind of
sworn in on
authority
the
they
Harbor
have.
Committee.
that's, being sworn to uphold the Constitution, the
I've
laws of
never,
the
I
United
served
States.
that on the committee for 7 years. I don't ever remember being sworn in.
Odd.
Anyway,
You were a fraud.
I know.
Along with everybody else
I
there.
don't remember doing it when I was on the library. I can see the ZBA and Planning Board, they're quasi,
ZBA, they make decisions.
Judicial.
They make decisions that bind the
But the
town.
Harbor Committee's only a recommending
Library
board.
board members
They're
don't, I know
not,
that for a fact, because I was
Or
library
it's
board.
a select board committee.
right.
Harbor committee.
It's a,
so it probably, but
It should be Select Board, Planning Board, and ZBA, I think.
I would think.
I would think so
Let's let
too.
Bill take
And
it.
the fire chief and police
Well,
chief,
that's
because they're town officers.
Yeah.
Bill do his,
I mean,
draw
just,
his pin through it, and then we'll accept it after that.
I think once we've agreed that this is the group, then we just list them in here.
Yeah, I think
Then I'm
that,
gonna be a
I
list of
agree, yeah.
No, that seems excessive.
That's what, yeah, no.
You're still in the petition section?
no, we've moved on to,
Because I have some things on that.
well, would you step up to a mic or say them loudly?
I'll talk to Jean about it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
All right,
just
well, you'll look at-
rearranging and taking out, sexist language.
Yeah, that's a copy edit. That's a
Yeah, we can
copy
take
edit
care of
thing.
that.
On this first part of Section 2, the last sentence is, "Any officer shall serve for his prescribed term or until his successor is elected or appointed." I think we
Yeah.
need to add whichever comes first, because then somebody gets to choose whether they say, hey, my term is over, I don't care if I've got a replacement or not, or, it's a little vague. We probably need to change his to their.
Yeah, I was going
Right.
to say his is, that's a little old.
Or his/her.
There.
How about
There. There.
That's not room enough in today's world.
just say serve for the prescribed term or
Right.
until a successor is elected or
Yeah,
appointed?
that's good.
You can't, I don't think you can say that. If someone's term expires, I don't think you can tell them they have to serve beyond that.
Yeah, I think if their term expires, their term expires.
I think so.
They're done.
I think you're done. If you choose to serve,
See what you're saying?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying whichever comes first. So if somebody, for whatever reason, leaves in December and says, I'll leave as soon as you have a successor available, then as soon as the successor shows up,
That's
they can leave.
before their term is
That's
up.
before their term is up.
I
But when their
think
term is
that-
up, they're
That might
done.
work in practice, but I don't think you can prescribe it in writing and say it has to be that way.
Why not?
Just because they might not want to do it.
Yeah.
And if
They
they
may wanna
decide
walk
they're not
away.
going to do
Well-
it, even though it's in writing, it
Can't
doesn't
stop
make any
them.
difference.
If you're elected to a term, so if you're elected from 3 years, at the end of 3 years, you're done. They don't hold you over to,
Right.
because somebody else
Right.
did.
And I think that's what but I think it's saying, or until a successor is elected or appointed. Don't you mean that means in case a premature vacancy happens?
Yes.
That's what I would think it
Why
would
don't we
refers
say it
to.
that
Yeah,
way?
to me, that somebody says, something's happened in my life, I can't serve anymore. I'm going to have to leave.
So why don't we say it that way? But you said
How did I say that?
a vacancy happens until a vacancy, or should a vacancy happen or something.
Yeah, any officer shall serve for their prescribed term, or if they vacate the position until a successor is appointed.
Okay.
I didn't get
Some
that.
don't think you can make that work.
Well, they might say, I'm leaving anyway.
But this is a case of this is a case somebody wants to get done early.
Yeah.
Right? And then, but they can't leave until somebody supposedly is appointed or elected to their position.
Yeah, I think it's a way to encourage them to hang around until we have a successor.
But generally, when somebody wants to
Stayed
leave,
this
it's for
long.
personal
You can't
reasons.
stop it.
Yeah, they'll just call in sick.
I don't think you can
So they miss 3 meetings and then they get kicked off.
make that difference.
Do we need to have that sentence at all?
I don't think we need it at all, because you're not going to change. If somebody decides they're not going to show up anymore.
If I'm
for
on a
whatever
board and I
reason.
decide to move to Florida, you're not stopping me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we will.
And say, oh, you can't leave because you've been elected to this position.
Yeah,
Responsibilities.
yeah, right, John.
So we're talking about taking that last sentence out?
Well, at least two of us are talking about it.
Shall begin no later than second business day following.
It's useless,
So we're in the
really.
case of,
It's really a useless sentence, because you can't make anybody do that.
well, I don't mind deleting it.
I don't either.
I'm for deleting it.
Because we already referenced some committees, if was a select board, I guess, if they get done early, there's a process for going
Right, we
installing,
have a vacancy, how to fill the vacancy
Right.
in the select board section.
but not in anything else, correct?
Well, we are, when you get to, oh, I have the wrong, do I have the wrong one?
I understand what it's trying to say, but I don't think you can make it work. Because somebody's made up their mind, they gotta move on, they're gonna move on, because they have a reason, generally. What's the matter, Deb?
You want this one?
You could always
No, I
say
wanna see
vacancies
which
can be
one. I
filled
just
by
wanna see
election or
which one you
appointment.
have.
March 5, 2020.
That one.
No, I don't have that one.
You don't have that? It's on the back.
I know, but for some reason, I don't think I brought it.
Oh.
But let me double check.
May I make a thought?
Oh, I got it. Make a thought?
A thought here. Instead of this saying shall serve for his prescribed term or until, maybe it should say something like, any officer may serve beyond his prescribed term.
We don't want to allow them to serve past their prescribed term.
No, you can't do that.
No, because so reverts back to the
All you
other.
can do is make a reference to any
Reference
position,
said that people couldn't do that, no, that's confusing.
make a reference to any position becomes vacant that will be filled in the,
Okay.
will be filled either by an election with the earliest convenience or appointed by the select board.
In a situation,
We have that in other
Right.
places.
So we don't need it here.
Right. Just if you want to reference it, I don't know, we don't need it there.
we don't need to.
Oh, I say just strike it out. I'm making too much out of
I
it.
thought we had a,
So a motion, do we have a motion to strike that last sentence?
Strike it.
yeah.
Any more discussion?
All in favor?
Wow. That was easy.
It was.
Okey-doke. So the swearing in of officers is where I say need to get a better explanation. That's the list that went to BK. The next session,
Is the firefighters on that list?
he said no about the firefighters. Firefighters and policemen don't get sworn into the town office on that. It's
I did
just for the
originally.
fire chief, and it should be for the fire chief and police
But
chief.
when I originally joined the fire department, I was sworn in every year
But sworn in,
by the town manager.
Really?
Yeah, back
not on the list.
in the 80s, 78, 80.
That's what we were just talking about. It's just the fire chief and police chief.
He said the fire police don't
He
have
said it
to.
just refers to the fire chief and the police chief, not to the rank and file firefighters or
Yeah.
police officers.
Right, the reason the fire chief is sworn in because he can actually be a law officer. And that's the reason for swearing the fire chief in.
The emergency
Who swears in now?
officer or something like that.
Town
Right,
clerk?
I think they actually make
Town
Person
clerk
or
or general?
reserve officer or something like that, he's
There's a
designated.
form, you just.
Wasn't there
go in
some
and sign it.
discussion about fire police having,
They're sworn in, fire police are,
fire police are?
But
they are today.
a different kind of swearing in, or the same one that we swear when we got elected to the select board?
I don't know,
This
honestly.
is like police officers get sworn in by the police chief, I believe.
Yes.
Okay?
That doesn't
And I-
need to be-
And I would think the same thing happens with the fire police get sworn in by the
Did you
the
say you
fire
were
chief.
sworn in by
And
the,
that's actually, they were sworn in by the town office. Somebody at the town office swore in.
let's leave it up to Bill Kelly, please.
I love
We're-
that.
we're-
Another BK question.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to complicate this.
Yeah, you are, yeah, you
I'm just bringing up things that I know what happened over the years.
Okay.
This, I have a question that might be very inappropriate.
Well, hold on just one sec,
Okay.
'cause,
Okay, I'm all ears. What?
okay, go ahead. Yes?
In today's world, the oath has a "so help me God" in it. Is that considered to be okay in
Yes,
today's
it is.
world?
Isn't it?
Well, I'm just asking
I'm
a question. When
wondering.
There seems to be a lot of sensitivity to those kind of issues, and I don't know.
Well, since the oath isn't in the charter, here's my reaction. You don't need to worry about it.
Okay. Agreed. I'm fine with
I'll open that can of worms.
Didn't know.
But I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's like how we've changed certain descriptions of things and gender
I just-
equality and all
Just
of
found
that.
out yesterday that Alabama voted to allow yoga instruction in their public schools.
Oh, that's so progressive of them.
Before they had disallowed it because it was reflective of a non-Christian religion. But they're not allowed to say namaste at the end of the sessions.
All right, moving right along. Section 4 is added the word, financial conflict of interest. A has really not changed. B is new. And I know that this is a practice that the planning board has used, that if you,
Wait a minute, I don't have a six, oh, there it is.
Section 4?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on B. Any board, committee, or commission member with a conflict of interest shall recuse him, herself, and shall move to the public section area until such time as the matter involving the conflict of interest is closed and the board, committee, or commission is ready to move on to the next agenda. The planning board has a practice
So
of
does the
doing
select
that.
board.
And it hasn't always happened, but it has, yeah.
As I'm seeing this and reading it, when someone says they have a conflict, they are to remove themselves from the
Vote of that issue.
vote of the
dais.
shit, but
You step off
they're
the
also
dais.
to
Sit down in the public
Section
sit
area.
in the public
Right,
area as
yeah.
opposed to sitting,
Up on the dais.
Right.
like right here, if I had a conflict of interest, I'd have to move to that seat back there while you talk.
Or that one over there.
Right.
Which means
Or the one,
You
yeah.
have to sit next to Nancy.
Okay.
you're
She
not
won't let you.
participating
Not
in the
participating.
discussion.
Deb,
As a citizen.
Right.
Only if I get a mask.
you here when Sid and I did that?
Move down?
Yes.
I don't remember that.
You did.
I did it when Sid and
I
I
sat
did
down
it.
once.
Yeah.
I sat down once.
And
I
Sid and I
remember
did.
when I was chairman of the planning board, somebody had to go sit down during a discussion.
Sometimes we would ask the applicant if it was okay if we just stayed here, and if they said, yeah, that's fine. The conflict of interest as it's described in Section A only refers to people that could get a benefit by business from the town, okay? Conflicts of interest for the planning board are if a member of the planning board could get a benefit if a project was approved or not approved. You know, maybe they're a contractor or an engineer or an architect, whatever. Somebody could look at it and say, oh, well, you can benefit if this project is approved. So I think, and that's the way the planning board has always
Right,
done it, had the
right.
discussion. Do we need to include language like that in here, or are we okay just going without?
I'm not really sure if I'm a contractor and I'm on the planning board and I could possibly get the contract for the project, or I've gotten the contract or I'm on retainer, that qualifies as a financial interest
Right.
because I get paid.
And that's in here on A.
But it says who has a financial interest in any contract with the town or in the sale of any land, materials, supplies, or services to the town or to a contractor supplying the town. So Section 1 only discusses if
You're-
the project ultimately does business with the town.
Town business.
Yeah, and the planning board could see a
Okay.
project where somebody wants to put out subdivision, whatever, you know, and the town has no
Got
active
it.
part in it, so.
But that's also a small town. You're going to have those instances where
Yeah.
people are going to, you know, there's just no way you can, I know what you're saying, but I don't know if you could, I mean.
I think
It's
if similar kind of language, if they can get a financial benefit by
Financial gain.
some kind of financial
financial-
gain, and just not talk about the town, you know, because there are projects that are approved by the planning board.
I saw that one get stretched out so far, it was crazy. It was one of the select board members whose father's property was going to benefit by a development next door. And some people in the audience asked that select board member to step away because when Daddy died, this guy was going to be his beneficiary. That was like, you can't stretch it out any further than that. It was crazy.
I was at that meeting.
On that
yeah,
note, this is strictly financial. What about a personal conflict of interest?
That's a
What I'm
bias.
thinking is it should say personal and financial.
Yeah, I think
It's like
that's,
the word and.
What would be the personal conflict of
Personal,
interest?
You might have a family
A relative.
member
a relative,
or
What
it might be
happened?
an attorney and you've worked with somebody way in the past, though not in this matter.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have a personal conflict of interest.
we had that on the ZBA where, when I was on it, where one of the people was represented by the same lawyer,
Right.
okay? Nothing to do with the case, but this lawyer that's representing them is also my personal lawyer, and there was that conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the word personal or
Or
financial. should be-
personal and financial.
And also, the way the law reads is,
Or.
if it could be perceived.
Proceed.
There's that phrase, if it could be perceived, that's in the law, and quite often when I read about things that come up in the paper, you know, in the state of Maine, it's because of that phrase, that. that's-
Perception, though, was,
Yes.
Or if it could be perceived to be a personal or financial conflict.
I think I've seen in some where there's a little, a paragraph B would be talking about the perceived conflict. And I think there are a couple of charters that talk about the perceived conflict and also talk about anything that would be of benefit to an immediate family member. Do you want me to pull some of that language?
I think that would, like I said, that's the practice of the planning board and the ZBAs, that's the way they've been doing it. But one of the things we're trying to do is turn practice into policy with this. And I think also that Section C will need to be revised to reflect that,
Yeah.
because it only discusses a contract where the select board is involved.
Let's expand. So I'll add a phrase about the perceived conflict of interest and expand beyond just financial interest. There could be
I could see this opening up one hell of a discussion,
Yeah,
anybody, because
Yeah,
what's perceived to me might not be to you.
Well, I'll see what, there are other charters that address that.
can we look at
Just
that
Bill.
before we make a decision on this?
Yeah, we
Because
can,
I agree
we
with
can
John.
continue
I think
this.
we're going too
Like
far.
prudent man standard. If a prudent person could
Oh.
determine that there's a perceived abuse of power or whatever, something
If
like that.
nothing comes up where it might be some distant cousin, somehow, somebody related, no, but I'm talking about where it gets legally challenged and they have big deals in towns, that's one case. Another is somebody lives in a neighborhood, they're on the planning board or the zoning board, and an issue comes up with one of the properties, and the property owner gets upset because somebody in the neighborhood is on there that they perceive has a certain viewpoint about what they want to do, and that ends up in a big kerfluffle.
Yeah, it does.
I'll pull up some
Makes a
language,
mess.
and I'm going to be gone as of Friday by 2, but I can get it out to you guys. I'll pull up tomorrow some other statutes and send around sample language, not incorporated in here, but for you guys to review, and then we come back, we can decide how we want to do it.
But, there's a certain level of trust here, too. I mean,
Right.
You've elected these people, whatever position they're in, to make judgments. I mean, there's always going to be the situation where something's going to come up, an ordinance or licensing or whatever, and the building might be 3 places down the street from your house. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you're going to vote against it. You're going to, usually most people look at the rules, the laws, and say, this is what I have to base my decision on.
Yeah.
There's,
You don't want to try and list absolutely every instance of where somebody might think you have a conflict of interest when you don't. And there are some charters that talk about that the person needs to bring it up, that there may be, and the board actually votes and decides whether you have a conflict or not. And it goes on the record that the select board may say, no, you do not, or the planning board may say, no, we do not believe you have a conflict of interest, you may stay. So I'll get some of that sample language and get it out.
Because there were times when we would discuss a conflict of interest and have it fully explained, and then ask the applicant whether or not they felt there was a conflict here. And if they said, no, we're fine with this, then we'd proceed.
Yeah.
Because there's many times that if it satisfies these ordinances, bang, 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 it gets approved. There is no gray area. But it was always clearly discussed whenever we thought there might be something that people could be concerned about.
That's exactly what I was going to say. When I was on the ZBA, we had things come up where we discussed amongst the members and the applicants that, hey, we all live in the same town, we all know the same things. And we all had a interest, not necessarily conflict, but in the.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
The
look for some
instance that I was talking about, there was a perception by a couple of people in the audience that one of the board members had a conflict of interest. The people sitting up on the board had a perception that, no, he didn't. So whose perception do you go with? When you use the word perception, you're just walking that place where who makes that decision?
Well, in some of the ones I remember seeing, the board actually votes.
We did.
So, and I think then that goes on the record, if it's challenged, it's
But generally, the
challenged.
vote comes from the board members saying,
Right.
I may have a perceived, and then explain it. I mean, I've seen it many times. It's usually, because we all know somebody knows somebody knows somebody, and if you want to play that game, I met somebody with you, and because I know them now, I've got my bias of my opinion, but I remember when we did the RPs and stuff for the ambulance stuff, and Delta was one of the applicants at that time. My son worked for Delta at that time, and he got fired. So for whatever reason. And I asked him right up front, I said, do you have a problem with me sitting on this board to make the decision? And he was fine, but I was right up front with it. Tim from Delta was the owner.
Yeah, okay. Well,
So it happens all the time.
I'll get something out, I'll get a couple of samples out to you guys. I think other towns have handled it in more detail than we're handling it here.
We don't need to make it so bad that we need a book just to solve conflict.
C has not changed. And I added D, as a number of charters do, that say the standards of conduct in this section shall apply to the employees of the town. And I think this last sentence was important. Any inquiry or disciplinary action of an employee for violations shall be conducted solely under the terms of the town's personnel policy manual. I think that's a reasonable addition. And under prohibitions, I added that sort of sentence about it applying to the employees as well, under section 5. And the last ones in blue are all new, and I just threw them out there because I found them in a couple of places. And I don't know whether it's ever been a problem, but I put them out there because some other charters use it. No person shall directly or indirectly give, render, pay, offer, solicit, or accept any money, service, or other valuable consideration for any appointment, proposed appointment, promotion, or proposed promotion to, or an advantage in any position within the town administration. Seems a little draconian to me, and I didn't, but, you know, I'd seen it other places and didn't know. I mean, it's talking about bribes,
Or gifts.
which could be perceived as a bribe.
It needs to be there. It does.
Okay.
The first sentence in section 5, shouldn't it say to all elected and appointed officials? Insert and appointed.
Well, okay, I said it's employees, committee, commission, and board members, and those are appointed. So I could eliminate that if you say to all elected and appointed officials, because I was saying it's employees, committee, commission, and board members, and that would mean the appointed people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but I think employees need to be there
Clearer to
too.
have that listed.
Have it listed,
Because
okay.
we've had discussions about who's an official and who
Okay.
isn't.
So D talks about political solicitations.
Right.
And I think E is the disclaimer that says it doesn't mean that you can't be a member of a political party and support a political party. I thought F was really good. I was sort of surprised we didn't have it. No person shall disclose / use information not available to members or the general public and gained by reason of his or her official position for his or personal gain or benefit, or for the personal gain or benefit of another person or business entity. In other words, if you learn something in the office,
What stays there, stays there.
stays there, stays there. No insider trading. And section 6 is new. We had talked about trying to put things about boards, committees that apply to all of them in general in this section. So it talks about AA is their organizational meeting. We had talked about putting in there that they ought to go by Robert's Rules of Order.
Can you drop secretary from number 1? Where it says
Oh,
election of
okay.
officers, which include the chair, vice chair, and secretary.
You don't elect a secretary, usually sometimes someone
A
volunteers.
lot of them just don't have a secretary.
Sometimes the chairman does both
So add secretary out.
out of that, yeah.
And like the ZBA and the planning board don't need one because they've
Right.
got a separate recording person who's an employee.
Yeah, and in the select board section, we eliminated it and just talk about how they have to provide for the recording. and
Written
record, yeah.
records, yeah.
You wouldn't put anything in B about putting it up on the web, minutes being put up on the website.
Well, I was thinking of whether we needed it. If it's being made available to the public, wouldn't that, I shouldn't assume that that means going on the town website.
We say never assume.
Never submitted to be made available to the public, including on the town website?
I don't think it's necessary to put the actual site, because right now we're doing our meetings on YouTube. That's not the website. right? So, and I think just that it may be available to the public. How we do it,
Change over time.
and we may decide we don't want to broadcast it on YouTube at some point in time. So, I don't think that needs to be in here.
Might be smoke signals, who the heck knows? I mean, the way things are going, they change so quick.
Who makes the decision where it goes? Is it YouTube or Facebook, or who decides
I don't
that?
know, I send minutes to Janice, and I was, like, minutes we've had here, or minutes on the design team, I send them to her and say, the minutes have been approved, stick them out on the charters section of the website, or put them out for the design team. I just, and then Janice does it.
Now that you've asked that, I saw something recently, and I cannot remember what it was, but somebody wanted to develop some Facebook page for the town reporting or acting. Some people don't do Facebook. I happen to be one of them.
Okay.
And so that's limiting my access if you're going to put it on Facebook.
At the select board meeting a month or so ago, Allison brought up the fact that several years ago, somebody started a Town of Camden Facebook page.
Right.
And whoever was administrating it, they did it for a whole bunch of towns all over the state. They started the Facebook pages for them. But now, they're gone. And there's nobody available to be an admin for that page. So Allison was in the process of starting a new
Okay.
Facebook page for the town of Camden.
Right.
That is now up and running.
And she
And-
posts on it.
But it's not something that's everybody's involved with.
And it shouldn't be what's used for.
That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't be used
As
for,
qualifying as an official public notice of like public hearings. That does not qualify.
It is one of the methods that people get things, but it's not the only one, it's not the official one.
okay,
a lot of
that's
people
what
that
I
aren't on
was saying.
Facebook.
that-
Yes.
YouTube is therefore not an official one.
Yeah.
But the town website might be an official one.
Not anymore. I got hijacked twice and forget it, you know?
No, I'm not on Facebook. I don't Twitter, I don't do any of
You
that
don't
stuff.
tweet?
Tweet? I don't
No.
tweet.
I don't tweet.
I text once in a while, which is a lot for
I
me.
think we're saying we don't need to put
Brothers,
on the
'cause I
town
don't leave my
website, because we're
cell
saying
phone
just
on.
made it available to the public. What's the matter with
Trying to
you?
get my phone to ring.
That's the only way you can get it.
Hear it.
That's what-
Find a word, a way to say it. I don't think it's.
Committees that don't have a town-appointed recording secretary, Parks and Rec or whatever, who follows up with them to say, hey, nobody sent me minutes?
What I understand now, all meetings are in this room, except when they can't, when it's, select board or the
conflict.
planning board or the ZBA. They're in this room. It's all live stream, it's all recorded.
I understand that, but right here it says written record.
Right, they transcribe
Who
the,
transcribes that stuff?
usually Janice or Jeannie, they listen to it
It's going
and
to take a huge amount of work to do
Well,
that.
when I put that in there, I'm thinking of written record as the notes I take for the design team.
Yeah.
I take all the notes after the meeting, I type them up, I send them out to the committee, and I send them to Janice.
Yeah.
That's the written record, is the meeting notes. This, what we approved on the 27th, is a written record of the meeting.
I understand that. My suggestion is that perhaps not all committees are as diligent as you are.
As are other committees, some committees.
Yeah, some are, probably some are not. And I just wonder if there's somebody in town who calls up the X committee and say, hey, you met a week ago, I haven't seen any minutes,
I
what's
do
up?
not think that happens.
I think it's,
I think you're right.
I think it's up to each committee to do it and to get it done. And I think the instructions we got from Janice, is it in this or no, it's in my design team notebook, talked about all of those things about what committee members are supposed to do, about having the meetings open and the Freedom of Information Act and all of that. That's sent out by Janice when all the committees are appointed. But I think it's left up to the responsibility of the, and if somebody from the public comes in and asks Janice for minutes of a meeting and there none exist, I would think that Janice would then contact the committee chair and say,
But the other thing,
It
though,
sounds
is
like this is not a charter issue,
I don't
but
think-
maybe
I think
it's
it's a-
like this, a select board liaison issue or
Policy.
something.
And I think if you look at, if you have that, well, you're not on another
but
committee.
if they're all YouTube, then they archived. So even if you don't have the written, you can
Somebody
always
can
go
watch it
back,
on
if you can
YouTube.
go back and watch it.
Actually, I got an email this morning from somebody who was watching the design team thing on YouTube, which shocked the heck out of me. Okey doke. C, this is where we talk, where we have that forfeiture of absence for the select board and stuff, so I've put it in here and see if this is adequate. Forfeiture of membership due to absence, should any board, committee, or commission member have 3 consecutive unexcused absences from regular meetings within the fiscal year, their position shall be deemed forfeited and the select board shall appoint a new member.
Does it?
Doesn't apply to the select board, right?
No,
Yeah, because this right at the
we
top
have a separate
says,
section for the
boards,
select board.
committees, and
Yeah, this is
commissions
just-
appointed by the select board.
Appointed.
And then fill it, how they fill it after advertising for interested citizens to apply for any vacancy that shall occur on an appointed board, committee, or commission. The select board shall appoint a replacement for any vacancy as soon as practicably possible. And when we talked about, so are there any other comments about general provisions? It'll be copy edited by our gang here, copy editing subcommittee. One of the things we asked Bill Kelly about when we were talking about the vacancies on forfeiture language for the select board. And he came up, remember we had sort of option 1 and option 2. One was much longer. Option 2 was listing, 4 different reasons why. And he came up with some good language that says, an absence shall be excused by an affirmative vote of a majority of the other members present, this is the select board, and voting select board members, upon a finding that the written request for approval of an unexcused absence is reasonable. Factors to be considered shall include, but not limited to, attendance record, circumstances beyond the control of the absent member, professional or family commitments, and illness or medical treatment.
That sounds good.
It
I
covers
thought
it.
that was nice, that was good
Covers everything
language.
very nicely.
Yeah.
The fact that it starts with included but not limited to,
Yeah,
that
that-
means anything possible, and as long as
It's
it's
reasonable.
discussed and reasonable, it can be accepted.
We also asked about whether we were being discriminatory when we talked about who could be a member of the select board and part-time employees. And we had added the language that we were saying that a part-time employee of the fire department could be. And I asked him if it was discriminatory because we were eliminating all other town employees. And he said the edit we suggested is legally permissible. And we also asked him about the section that talks about a select board member could fail to qualify, and what did that mean? And we also asked about, because it talks about there being a permanent disability being a reason to be disqualified from being able to serve on the select board. And he wrote me a long response, but basically is saying that stated the real point of inquiry for any allegation of a permanent disability that would qualify as a vacancy would turn on the obligation to provide a reasonable accommodation for that elected person. For instance, you could make some kind of an accommodation. They don't have to be able to sit on the dais or whatever. And so I've added that language about if the town has made a reasonable effort to accommodate the disability, because he said you have to be able to say, in case you're sued by somebody that you said is disqualified from serving, that you've made a reasonable accommodation, that a lawsuit would hinge on the town having made the effort to make a reasonable accommodation.
But what is reasonable?
Well, then that's what gets determined in the court of law
Yeah.
if somebody sues. But we have the language in there about you could be disqualified if you have a permanent disability. But if we add the language about a reasonable accommodation, then that softens that language. And if somebody sues, they're going to sue.
Yeah, but this day and age with courts, they usually judge in favor of disabilities, you know. You'd have to be,
Right.
I can't think of one that they would not rule against the community,
Right,
you
possibly.
know.
Right, that's also true, I think, that somebody could challenge, even though Bill said that can be in there, the part-time firefighter thing. You know, if somebody wants to, they'll challenge that.
Currently, we don't even allow a part-time fire person. Currently, we don't even allow a part-time firefighter to do it. We're allowing them, so somebody may say, well, what about me? I don't think that's reason to take it out.
No.
Lawsuits
No.
happen.
For all kinds of reasons.
Take a number, as they say.
So those are our two. So it doesn't look like we have anything serious to do on 7. I need to find some good samples of the personal conflict of interest language and get that out to you all. And then, let me look at my agenda. What did I do with my agenda? Thanks.
When are you coming back?
I'm coming back, if I'm not quarantined down where I'm on vacation,
That's true.
I'll be back on the 31st. I made some notes on mine. I really do need to find
Want to
mine.
stay home and watch as the
There
world
it is.
turns?
We could all go with you.
Yeah, we could have the meeting down around the swimming pool.
Yes.
As long as it's on video, we're fine.
Um,
I don't know if I want to be on video in a swimsuit, though.
I just keep on number 4 on the agenda, I just keep this list here of tasks, and one I don't have on here is a question I think maybe we ought to ask ourselves. Are there any governance issues that we have not taken up that you can think of? Are there any things about how the town is run that we haven't discussed that you need to be discussed? We've had the conversation about town meeting form of government versus other forms of government, and we've talked about issues as we've gone through it, but is there anything on anybody's list that we haven't considered yet? I just want to make sure that if one thinks of something, that everybody feels free to bring it up, to make sure there's not some issue that we haven't thought of, or somebody's been shy, it's such a shy group,
I'm shy.
bringing things up. I just wanted to put that out there.
Have you thought of anything? Does anything come to mind for you?
Actually, small things have come up as we've gone through the articles, and we've resolved them to my satisfaction. So I don't have anything outstanding
Yeah.
myself.
I have one. I was thinking about it this afternoon. I'll lean forward. Okay. When a board member is a liaison to a committee, and we have a number of them that are liaison, I don't think there's anything in the charter that says that they can't be an active participant in that committee, and I don't think they should be an active participant. They're a liaison to be there and hear, listen, and report back only. And so I think, I'm just thinking somewhere it has to say the liaison, the board member, select board member liaison is not a participating member in the committee that they're assigned to.
Well, I'd
Well,
like
they're
to,
prohibited from being a member of any other committee.
Right.
So that eliminates their ability to vote or offer motions or anything like that on a formal basis.
but I don't know what you mean by active, Mark. You have a
Yeah,
question. I have an
I'm
example.
going to kind of come out against, disagree with you on that. I'm on the Parks and Rec Committee, and Bob is our liaison. And there are many instances where we are discussing something, and he will participate in the meeting to let us know what the selectmen are doing or what they are considering. So to say they are, to only be there as an observer, I don't necessarily agree with it. I understand what you're saying about they shouldn't be there running the meeting, but they should definitely be able to participate in the meeting,
Discussion.
in discussion.
Yeah, I think there's a way to put that, because also you might have a board member, and when Sharon Gilbert and I were on
Yeah.
multiple boards, I saw it happen a couple of times, where a liaison actually spoke at a meeting to sway or participate in a way that they weren't reporting what the select board was doing. They were acting as a member of the committee, or thought they were, and they shouldn't have been.
I have an example from yesterday's design team meeting. Mark Ratner is our liaison, and we were talking with Parks and Rec, who has some ideas. They're coming up with some new park location signs to try to standardize them. And we were talking about that, and a couple of us had met with Historic Resources, which is doing a similar kind of a project. And Mark had a suggestion and said that he would take it to Audra and get back to us. We weren't voting on anything.
Right.
It was just a way to sort of help the process along, and those kinds of the information that you're talking about, hey, well, this is where the select board is on this, or I can take that to the select board to the next meeting, is the kind of participation that you're looking for. That's the sort of the supportive,
Resource.
giving information and being a resource, but not necessarily
Expressing an opinion.
A voting member. They're not a non-voting
and
member.
I think it's a two-edged sword. I do. Just do.
But no, I understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, you want the select board member to be informative and to be that resource.
From a select board person coming there, the select board person has the overall knowledge of what's going on in the town. The committee is sitting there, and we're planning on building a new whatever for Parks and Rec, and the town selectman is going, yeah, you can plan on that, but we can tell you right now, it's not going to be in the budget because of X, Y, and Z. So sometimes information like that is important. And another thing is, another situation was, we were asked at Parks and Rec, what are the things that are going to be budget items that are going to need, a large amount of money for next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line? And so that input coming, we don't know, we're going to have to rebuild a dam next year, so we can't rebuild a ski trail this year. Those are just
Right.
arbitrary things. But having that overall knowledge onto that, not necessarily on the committee, but at the committee meetings, I think they should be very active in the meetings.
Well, I think, the role should be informing, providing a resource of support for the committee. But if a motion has been made on taking some action, and it's been seconded, and it's open for discussion, that's probably not a time for a select board person to participate.
So would that be in policy rather than
I would
charter?
think it would be, I don't know.
I think it should be in policy. It should be stated somewhere.
It's understood. It's more or less understood.
Out of control. It truly
One at
does.
a time.
It
Wait,
depends on the person and the personality.
Exactly.
Yes,
Nancy?
Well, there are guidelines for committees
Right.
that come out, get sent to every member, and particularly to the chair. And there could also be, a policy or guidelines for liaison people.
Right.
So it wouldn't be in the charter.
It doesn't have to be in the
It would
charter, but I
something
think
that
it needs to be
the committee chair
stated.
and the select board people would be aware of.
Okey doke. Is there a guideline or policy for select board members' participation in committee meetings?
Yes, there is somewhere. Been years.
Okay.
But it
So
says
who
about
would-
liaisons, about,
Who would do me the favor and follow up with Audra to ask that question?
I'll ask Bob. You want to do it, Gene? You want to do it, it's fine.
Okay.
But then
John, if you would, no, John, if you,
I'll ask Bob.
yeah, ask Bob what the scoop is on that. If they have a written policy somewhere in their, policies and procedures that they decide every year?
we have 5 people sitting here that were former selectmen.
Karen ought to be involved.
You must have had known a little bit about what your policies were when you were on those liaison
Oh, really?
commissions.
No.
When,
You knew not to vote, but you could participate.
Tried to be
Liaison to
polite.
a number of
You know,
committees.
That was about it.
Generally, what it was is that you could be there, and generally the group would ask you to be involved, and then you'd answer their questions. You don't try to push your own agenda onto
Exactly,
the group,
yeah.
and then you knew that you were a non-voting member or person.
that's how it was handled when I was on the select
Nancy
board.
was talking to me,
Yes.
and she got interrupted. What were you saying?
She was saying about the guidelines, the
So you should
committee.
be involved in drafting it because you should.
Can't hear her through the mask. Can you
She was
translate?
just saying that you might know because you were involved as a select board member as liaison, and then she was saying that there are guidelines for committee members, maybe there is a guideline for the select
I
board.
can allude to examples, a few examples.
Never saw it. I just used my best judgment.
There wasn't a lot of
But
instruction.
let's see, that question may bring something up to Bob, too, because I can remember coming to, and this is years ago, I was off the board, and I, wasn't on the select board anymore, being at a meeting, and a select board member actually saying they couldn't participate, being in some committee member and a meeting and hearing a select board member say something to that effect.
Somebody just took it to the extreme, that's all, at that time, probably.
Yeah, I think it just would put a cap on anybody that's overreaching.
But most times, like I said before, if the committee, they usually want the select board member that's there to be engaged in the conversation, most times. Because then they get a kind of a sense what the select board's thinking too.
Right. But when you do the budget committee meeting, the select board now sits up here and listens to what's going on down here. They don't participate.
No, they don't
No.
participate at that time.
I've been told to shut up.
Because you get your turn as a select board member.
That's
Right. We all have.
At the budget meeting the other night, the select board, they asked a couple of questions of them, and they responded. Audra made the
Really?
comment about something and turned to, you were there, and Bob answered what was going on.
Oh, but that's
That's
Yeah.
a give and take thing,
The big thing is you have to be recognized through the chair.
That's
You
right.
have to remember to be
That's-
recognized.
That's what yeah. They don't just
Don't rep.
talk.
Excuse me.
That's the chair of the budget committee too.
Bye-bye. Stay healthy.
Me tomorrow.
Good health, Nancy.
Maybe that's the key.
Good health.
There.
Oh, I'm fine.
Liaison.
Mine.
I'm avoiding.
Recognized by the chair.
Just trying to make sure you don't get unfined.
The thought.
No, that's a good thought. Liaison should be recognized by the chair before participating, but again, I think that's a policy thing for the select board.
All committees are supposed, everything we work, you're supposed to go through the chair. You just don't talk. They do, but you don't.
And yet, we do that all the time. In this meeting, we're informal enough so that we do.
Well, get Deb a hammer. She got one
I
behind.
do try
Yeah,
to
I
watch
do.
who's got their hand up.
Yep.
Okey doke. Back to number 4, Lowry, you said you're going to work on a new growth management article. Transition article, I've got to ask, it's on my list to ask a BK a question about when the new charter, does it have to start at the beginning of a fiscal year or can it start? And at some point, we need to write a final report article. And at some point, we'll have all of these articles all together in one thing, and we'll all take another whack at it. We do need to talk about the public process and how to do it, and perhaps that's something we could do at our next meeting, is to try to tackle how we would do that and how we would schedule it, how we'd format a public process. And it's a question I would like to ask Bob Oxton, how it was done when he was on the charter.
It's spelled out though in the state statute, how it has to
It
be.
is spelled out that you have to have it, but I'm talking about how we do it. Do we, do we put up the old and new, or do we have a summary of every article about the major changes we've made? And do we start out by having an introduction to basically we're a town meeting form of government and this is what it is, and we've had this discussion, I mean, the pros and cons. So I think we need to have that discussion because we need to schedule them and start doing them.
Well, August, we got to have the last public meeting.
We have to have it to the select board, then the final report, and the charter has to be turned over to them.
The final language.
So how are we doing on our schedule? Are we
Be printed
up to
prior to
date
that.
or ahead or
Has to be-
behind?
No, I think we're good, but we have to have those meetings, and whether we have them in June and July,
That's the other
have them in
thing.
May and June.
Turnout for those meetings that in the middle of the summer is tough.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect from going through the comprehensive plan that we're going to have a meeting, and you're going to have 2 people show up. I don't expect
Plus some select board members.
much attendance, so I think your idea of having a Reader's Digest version of old, new makes sense. So somebody could read it in 5 minutes and see what we're doing, and if they want to see the specific language, they can see that. I think that's the easiest way to go about it. And I think we can talk about other things that we discussed, such as whether or not town meeting is the best form, or, city council is the best form. But I wouldn't spend much time on that, because we were brought together to come up with a proposal response, not to continually hash it out on whether or not, because all of these forms of government have little advantages over some of the other forms, depending on what
Right.
the decision you're going through. But this is what we believe continues to be the best for us. And I think that would be the way to proceed. And we had talked about having a public information gathering meeting, which would be informal, wouldn't be a public hearing. And sometimes people are more willing to talk at those kind of meetings, and then go right to a public hearing, if that's what's next.
Okay.
And I think that when, you've got written down here, a meeting with the Personnel Board and Select Board, I think that both those should be work sessions. It shouldn't be us going to the Select Board when they're on the dais and it's part of another Select Board meeting. I think you want to have a conversation.
Once we have it pretty much together.
Yeah.
The meeting with the Personnel Board actually might be my going to a Personnel Board meeting, if that is okay with you all, and talking about that personnel section and the changes we've made. Because as I think I said last week, Audra said the Personnel Board is actually looking at wondering why they're elected and why they can't be just another appointed board by the Select Board. So they're already a step ahead of us in many respects as far as making changes to the Personnel Board. So the thought was that I would go to a Personnel Board meeting, or 2 of us could go to a Personnel Board meeting in April, and that's the new chairman of that Personnel Board could arrange a meeting and go and have that conversation rather than having a group, big double group thing, if that seems suitable to you guys.
And they only meet as needed.
Exactly.
There's no regular meetings.
What our plan is, Gene and I have talked about this. We think that in spite of Article 8, which we've got some questions on, we're going to send Bill Kelly 1 through 6 as we have them. Tell him, don't look at whether A is followed by a 1 in parentheses. Don't look at the outlining format. Don't worry about whether there's a typo or not, but we want to get him the content now so he can start going through it. So the hope is to be able to do that by Friday. I will send it to him so he can start going through them and coming back to us, because
Why only 1 through 6?
Well, 7 we can probably send, but 8 we still have some questions on. 8 we have a little work to do.
Weren't those questions for him?
Well, no, it's about the personal conflict of interest and getting you guys some more samples of conflict of interest. So we could do 1 through 7 and get him to start going through it. We've already asked him some of the bigger questions, but now we can look at them in context as opposed to my pulling out the paragraphs and sending them in a memo. Okay. Next meeting. If all goes well, I will be back on the 31st, but what do you all think about having a meeting that next week in April?
What week is that?
I mean,
That
not the
would be
first,
the
the
week-
8th.
Yeah, would be like, I don't know how long, if the budget committee is rolling right along, and whether you're going to be extended into April?
I hope not. Doesn't-
Well, we didn't finish the whole thing last
We
meeting.
didn't.
We were still, but
Don't you think it's going?
Should be, unless there's something major that comes up.
Does the 8th of April, though, work? Okay, that would give Bill maybe some time to get back some of the stuff to us? What do you think about the 8th of April?
I will not be here
I
on
will
that
not
day.
be here unless everything gets shut down.
Okay, well, when would you be here?
Next week,
I'll be here the
somewhere's around the
that second week in
15th?
April.
are you going to Frozen 4 again?
I am.
I thought so.
What if there's no fans?
There are no
I'll be
fans.
there.
Yeah.
I'm going anyway. It's a party.
Driving Zamboni?
April 16? God, that's a
Yeah.
month away.
That's gonna
I don't like,
push it
that's
for us, I
scary.
think.
That's scaring me.
Yeah.
Let's try the 8th, see how many we get. At least we can talk about it.
At least we can talk about what we've gotten back from
Yes,
Bill
I think-
Kelly.
Yeah.
Is there anything we could do on the 25th of this month?
You guys
You
could.
won't be here, okay. that's-
We're still waiting for Bill to
Yeah.
some things.
Let's do the 8th. Let's try the 8th and then see what we get.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I could ask Bill if he could get some of it back to us in time for a meeting on the 25th, or just
2, 3.
can we just shoot for the 8th? That would,
I think that's better. I really
let's
do.
shoot for the 8th.
Give us a little time to review everything.
Yeah,
Maybe just
Nancy and
read
Bob
through
show
everything
up, then
once
we still
more
have a quorum.
and see if there are any.
What I can do is should I email everybody one through?
I think that would be great, because we'd all have all the updates in one place.
And it won't be blue, red, black, and yellow, and orange, it'll all be black.
Okay.
Unless there's something new, brand new, that happens between now and when I send it out.
Be a so-called finished edition,
It'll look like,
look like a finished
It'll
edition.
be a clean.
it'll,
The
yes.
new ABC will be ABC. It won't
Well,
be-
yeah, but I'm not promising a formatting's going to be perfect, but we will get rid of the redlining and the red and the yellow and the green. and
Could we
the
get
purple.
Janice to print some off?
Yeah,
I would like,
I think we're going to have to do that for
have to do it for Nancy.
anyway. That would help, because it's getting.
And I'll tell her she doesn't have to do it overnight.
Just-
right, that gives her a long.
We've been getting, they send it in the mail to us.
Yeah.
Gets pretty quick.
And it's here, and the
It's
And
easy
I
to edit too when you have it in hard copy.
Right.
I think Wednesday's our best day for not having conflicts. I was gonna look, I'm just involved.
You know something here, Deborah? You need to stop worrying so much about this and get the hell out of here when you go on your vacation and enjoy it. You know that? And Larry?
Okay,
And I'm hearing you
I
doing
know.
this stuff, you're right up to the last minute, you're leaving? No. Let's just call a plug here somewhere, and you get your
Well, I
stuff
can-
together and load up your car or your airplane, or whatever you're doing, and see us when you get back.
I can get the stuff out to Bill and to Janice
But
on
don't
1
overdo
through
it.
6.
Go. You can send us you could send us a card saying, wish you were here, you know, with the beach scene and all that, you know.
Hope I don't get quarantined down in
are you
Florida.
flying down?
Yeah, we're flying. I have a mask. I have hand sanitizer.
There you go.
Driving,
I don't think those masks do anything.
They don't.
What it hopefully will do will keep me from touching parts of my face. That's what it's for.
Well, hope bring your own toilet paper, too.
Okay. All right, so we're going to shoot for Wednesday, the 8th, 5:30.
My son just sent me a text
An
with a
SCR.
picture. Nothing in Hannaford and Augusta, empty.
Yeah. Yeah, those lights are all gone.
I understand that.
Okey-doke. Thank you all very much. Is there anything else?
Thank you, and if
No,
I don't
thank
see you,
you,
you
Tim.
enjoy your time.
But to get those out to Bill, won't you, before you go?
Pardon?
Forget what John said. Get the things out to Bill before you go.
Okay, Jim.
All right, do I have a
We'll go
motion
to
to
the
adjourn?
Frozen Four then, if we don't have it done.
I can't help it. I'm going.
I
I get the tickets.
Can you turn it off so we're not being,
Yeah, how you gonna go if they kick out everybody and nobody's able to?
That's such hogwash. the whole thing.
Now that we're about the March Madness and all that.
yeah, no fans.
No fans of
LeBron James
NCAA.
won't play if there's no fans.
It's in fear.
It's going to be really tough.
Putting your Audi pen back.
The noise in a filled stadium is very different from the noise in an empty stadium.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be hard for the TV, people to get a transfer.
Well, they'll probably put in last year's group.